Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of the Empower MEN1 podcast. Today I have with me my guest Hannah, who has very kindly offered to come on and share about her story with MEN1 so far. It's always such a pleasure to have guests on, to be hearing about all sorts of different experiences. And there are so many ways in which we can relate to each other, even in the differences in our experiences. So I really hope that anyone listening back is able to maybe draw some wisdom or just be able to relate to what Hannah says. So I will jump straight in. Hannah, welcome. It's so cool to
Thank
have you
you.
here.
Thank you for having me.
It's a
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you for agreeing to come on. My first question, which I ask every guest, or every patient guest, I should say, what is your story or your journey so far with MEN1 and your health?
Goodness me. It's been a crazy couple of years. My story, my journey only started in December 21. So I still feel like I'm really new to all of this. I didn't actually find out I had MEN1 until October 22, so nearly a year later. I fell really ill in December of 21, going into January of 22, um, which kind of prompted me to go to the doctors and get some advice, get some help. I didn't know what it was. I kept having viruses and lots of different issues. And I remember the doctor saying to me, "Oh, well, you've just got a virus, but we'll take your bloods just to find out." So that was kind of a bit of a kick in the teeth because I always feel like I'm very in tune with myself and kind of what's going on with my mind and my body. Um, and I remember I went in on the Tuesday and I had a call before 9 o'clock. The Wednesday morning, you know that something's up when the doctor's calling you before 9 a.m. the next day. And I just remember him saying to me, "Your calcium is a bit high, but can you come back in Friday? Because sometimes, calcium can fluctuate. We just want to make sure." Naively, I was like, "Am I eating too much cheese? Am I drinking too much milk? What's going on?" And I had my bloods taken again on the Friday, and lo and behold, they phoned me on the Monday and said, "Your calcium's higher than what it was. Can you go into hospital, please? Because we need to start pumping some fluid into you to bring your calcium levels down." So that was my first kind of initial, okay, something's wrong. I was right, something's wrong. Um, they did lots and lots of tests in hospital. Obviously, I was completely petrified, didn't really know what was going on. They confirmed that my parathyroid levels were quite high. And then I was referred to my consultant and had my first meeting with my consultant and noted some other symptoms where she then flagged, "Okay, I want to test you for MEN1 just because you're displaying some symptoms." And for me, I always like to know what's going on. So absolutely test whatever you need to test and tell me what I need to do to get better. I don't think I understood quite what it meant. So you fast forward to kind of October 22. It was the week after my 30th birthday. My consultant, I go and see my consultant. She's like, "Yep, you're confirmed. You have the MEN1 gene." And I was like, "Okay, don't really know what this means, but okay, I have it. Cool. I'm in this pool of people." Um, and I remember kind of walking out of that appointment, phoning my mum and saying, "Yep, I have the gene. Don't really know what it means though. I'm sure I'll be fine. I've just got to go for tests and they're gonna monitor me. It's all fine." And then I had a work a work meeting the next day. And in my lunch break in that work meeting, I was due to present straight after. I had my letter through from my consultant, which confirms my MEN1 gene. And obviously, Google is there for everyone. I headed straight to Google and I was like, MEN1, what does this actually mean? And I remember looking at Google and Google telling me I was going to die before the age of 50. And I was like, "I've just turned 30. Like, I'm not ready for this. I'm not in any position. I have a little girl who's nearly 4 now. I have a little girl, I have my whole life ahead of me. I'm in a really good place with my career. And all of a sudden it almost felt like the walls were closing in on me. Um, so that was kind of where my journey started. I obviously later realized that actually my world hasn't ended. MEN1 doesn't define who I am. Um, yes, there are bumps in the road, but actually, I've had quite a good experience, I think, and my health is in a really good place, and I feel like I'm in a really lucky position. I have great healthcare around me. I have a really good network of support. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I obviously was diagnosed with the hyperparathyroid ism, and I also got diagnosed with tumors in my pancreas. So I just recently, I know we've spoken, just recently had my the tail of my pancreas taken away, which was it's an exhausting journey, but as I say, I feel like I'm in a really good place in terms of healthcare, and my consultant, my surgeons, everyone around me, my support network are incredible. So I feel like I've had an easy journey so far. It's not been a particularly hard journey. And I always try and stay on like the positive side of, yes, I have MEN1, but actually, there are people that are worse than me, and I have a great support network and healthcare system. So that's where I'm at the moment.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And there's something that I noticed about you. The first time I spoke to you, there was, and you call it like a positive mindset. And I
Yeah,
think I'm struggling to think of the word right now, but there's definitely an upbeatness about you, which is, it's so funny because you say, you've been through this really, I mean, you have been through this really traumatic surgery, and
yeah,
I've been through it too. There's nothing nice about that
no,
surgery. And yet you say, I haven't had it too bad. And that's amazing because it takes quite a lot of self awareness, I think, to see that where we are now, in some ways, what we've been through has brought us perhaps to a better place maybe than we were before, even if we have
yeah.
had to go through the trial and tribulation on the way there. And I wondered what is it that helps you have that positive outlook? And if there's someone perhaps with MEM1 who's like, I really wish I could be like that, what
Yeah.
advice would you give to them?
Um, what helps me? I think what really helps my positive mindset is, I know we've also briefly spoken before, I do chakra meditation, which really helps me if I'm feeling in an anxious place. I actually just go onto YouTube, and in the evenings I will sit there and I will just listen to kind of guided meditation that helps me stay on a positive track and have a positive mindset. Also, being in hospital and meeting people who are in worse situations, I guess, than what I am. I'm very lucky. I have had scans and I have had tumors removed from me, and I don't require any other. Yes, okay, we have yearly scans and we have to, you have to kind of take it year by year because you don't know when the next operation's coming. But really, we're super lucky because we have those yearly scans. We know when something's coming. We kind of have that control over, okay, now this is happening and now I have to deal with it. I just think for me, if I was to sit there and dwell on kind of what's happening, that would put me into a dark place. So for me, I use a lot of humor as well. So if you ever speak to my consultant, she would I literally will walk into the room and be like, right, so what bad news are we going to talk about today? Like I try and use humor, and I just try to be kind of as upbeat as I can be, because I feel like otherwise you can put yourself into, this dark place that you don't know, you can't control it, you don't know what's going to happen. And it is that element of control of, okay, well, I know that at some point I'm going to have to go for another operation, but actually, I just don't think about it. I just, until I really need to, what's the point? I could walk into that scan and they'd be like, right, okay, carry on. There's nothing new. You know, I could have my bloods done and they could say to me, okay, we need to do a scan, or they could be like, no, you're absolutely fine, carry on as normal. So I just think not dwelling on kind of what you have, don't let it define you. I think that's what keeps my positive mindset.
It's amazing. It's really amazing to hear. And I think, particularly coming from someone who's so recently
Mm.
out of surgery, and very newly into the process, and the getting hold of the diagnosis was not a smooth sailing situation for you in the first place. So I think it's a really a refreshing conversation to have, and it's definitely something that I very much admire in people, and encourage, I think, and so I'm
Yeah.
really glad that you've kind of been able to bring some light to that. I laugh about the humor. I have the same thing, because when I sit down in my endocrine consultant's office, he always says, "How are you?" And I go, "Very well, thank you." "How are you?" And
Yeah.
he always looks at me as if I'm going to start,
Yeah.
listing off a load of problems, and genuinely I am very well. So I definitely I get that. And you said to me, when we last spoke, that your consultant calls you a professional patient, and you said it's because you show a certain level of engagement and interest in your healthcare. Are there any kind of strategies that you've used that help you stay on top of things, that help you advocate for yourself, that help make sure you have a strong connection, a strong relationship with your medical team?
Um, I think I just try and connect with them on a personal level. I tend to do that, I think, in everyday life as well. But my consultant, from the start, I feel like we've always had a really positive relationship. I absolutely adore my consultant and the medical team. I think I've said to you before, the medical team where I am are incredible, and I don't think I would ever want to kind of move from there. I walk into the hospital now and I'm like, I'm home because I go there so much now. Um, the nurses, the just the care that I have received, and I know that, it's not necessarily the same case for everyone, but I always think if you treat someone the way that you would want to be treated and get that kind of personal level, um, then it's that's kind of what I do. But the strategies, I guess, I don't. My strategy is not really to think about it, because I don't. It doesn't affect my everyday life. If it did, then maybe I would think about it a bit more. But there are symptoms that you can have with MEN1 that everyone can have. You don't have to have MEN1 to have certain symptoms. So it's kind of defining what is MEN1 symptoms and what is just everyday symptoms of things. I think I just don't let it take up my brain space. I know in the build up to a scan or to an operation, my anxiety definitely heightens. And my fiance is great because he'll be like, right, what we're going to talk about. And I'm like, well, my brain's just kind of going through everything at the moment, and I process everything that's about to happen. Um, and I just talk it through. I find talking um a really, really good strategy. So to kind of talk through what's about to happen, really understand. I really listen to the medical advice I get. So whatever my consultant says, whatever the nurses say, whatever the surgeon says to me, I really take in what they're saying. I also speak to other people who have MEN1. The Amend website is incredible. I've gone there for advice. There's a volunteer there who I speak to. She was amazing at the start of my journey. She really, really helped me because, this is such a kind of a rare disorder. There isn't a lot of information out there. Talking with people who have had similar experiences, and then obviously coming into my pancreas surgery, I found you, and that was amazing as well, because you talk to like-minded people who have been through this, and although your journey is different, getting all of the medical advice and listening to everything, taking everything in, but also taking in people's experiences as well, can help you make the best decision for you and your medical journey. But yes, apparently it is an actual official NHS term. I am a professional patient. I just really research what I have, and I like to understand, if there's a certain symptom, how do I need to differ, I need to understand whether it's MEN1 or it's a daily symptom, so that I know who I go to. Because if I went to my doctor, they wouldn't be able to help me with MEN1. And I probably know more than my doctor about MEN1 because it's such a specialist area. But if it's an MEN1 symptom, I know I go to my consultant or the nurse, and I speak it through with them. So I think in terms of kind of strategy, I just don't think about it unless I have to.
I love that. And it's so funny because what you've just said about, understanding the symptom and then that being able to then inform, which decision you make, who you go
Yeah.
to. I mean, I'm literally just writing content about that this week. And there's part of me that's like, has Hannah been reading my notes? Like, have you been inside?
Moving
Are you feeding me
on.
stuff? Are you sending me stuff through the screen? But that's absolutely it. And I do, when I've spoken to other people like yourself who have that better, stronger relationship with their healthcare team, firstly, what you said about the personal side of things, like remembering that that doctor is a human and they have a life and they're there doing their best to help you. And also showing, as you say, the engagement and the interest, because I talk about it as a team. It's very easy to see yourself as the patient and then everyone else on the other side of a
Yeah.
chasm, when it's not like that. It's, we're all in
No.
this together, and ultimately we have to kind of be at the center of it. So I think I'm really, really glad that, we've had this part of the conversation anyway, because I think it's so important and something that I encourage in, my listeners, my readers, anyone who's staying in tune with my content. So thank you already for just that so far.
Spoiler alert.
It's no, it really is a spoiler alert. I'm trying to think, right, when does this come out versus when does the content come out? And I think I have a feeling the content comes out first, but I can't be sure. Anyway, I'll credit you in the notes. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you.
You mentioned about, anxiety and that
Mm.
sometimes that desire or that need for control. We've spoken about it before. Can you remember a time when the anxiety might have been absolutely crippling? And if there was anything that you were able to do to kind of help calm that down, or perhaps actually there hasn't been a time like that. Perhaps you've always managed to keep a very um, relaxed. But you're shaking your head. People can't see this yet, but you're shaking your head. So I'm going to let you jump in and tell me, tell me about that time.
Oh no. Goodness me, anxiety. I mean, everyone has anxiety, don't they? But in the build up to my pancreas operation, my anxiety was horrendous. I mean, it's a major operation, really, Um, I I was meant to have my operation in September, and I fell ill just before the operation, so it didn't go ahead until the end of October. But I remember thinking, did I manifest this? Because I'm so petrified of going into this operation. My anxiety was so heightened, and I just didn't feel prepared. Like, I knew for a while that it was going to happen, but I didn't necessarily feel prepared for it. Um, and then in the kind of month in the build up to the next date, I just went crazy on exercise, meditation, and I just really got my mind into, I don't think I was necessarily in the best positive headspace. I was trying to keep positive and, put on that positive front almost, but kind of deep down buried, I don't think I was quite there. So I just, in that month, really worked on my mind, really worked on um the physical side of things and exercised and went out walking and just did as much as I could to feel like I was ready and in the best place possible to go into that next state, because ultimately I knew I had to have it done, and I knew I wanted to have it done. um but I think, yeah, my anxiety and the build up to that was horrendous. Also, my first op, my parathyroid, any operation, I think anxiety is definitely heightened. I think that is normal. And I think it's just how you kind of deal and manage that. And I don't think I was managing it necessarily as well as what I can do. So in that month where it's like, okay, no, this really has to happen and I can't let this take over, I just really worked on myself and my mind, and that just really helped.
I think it's really interesting what you said there. Did I manifest this?
Yeah.
And it's and as soon as you said that, it sort of sparked this side of me which hadn't really thought about, looking at it that way. And I suppose, the idea that we can't control MEN1, we can't tell our glands when to produce what, and how many lesions there should be at one point and how big they should be, all that sort of thing. But I believe that what we have control over is basically our actions, our reactions, our behaviors, and our words. And I think for you to be able to be in that anxious place and then to see that the answer was something as grounding as a meditation is amazing, because most anxious people won't go there. They'll just get more and more and more anxious. And so I hope anyone who's listening back who might have that anxiety, they might be, pre or post op, or maybe there's no op whatsoever, but it's just the condition itself. It is amazing to see and to hear your experience of that. Personally, for me, meditations have just absolutely revolutionized my experience with MEN1. It sounds like they have with you as well. And yeah, I think it's something that it's not a conversation I often end up having, because most people aren't familiar with meditations, with chakras, with all that sort of thing. So I'm really grateful that you've brought that up, and I hope it inspires people to go and look into that, because it is the most grounding form of being, of just being. Yeah, fascinating topic, definitely. My final question, which I'm really sad to have to say because I could probably chat to you all day if you let me, is if you were to be able to give one piece of advice to a past version of yourself, or maybe speak to someone who's about to go through what you've already been through, what would that one thing be?
um I think for me, I'm extremely happy with my journey, so I don't think I would go back and give myself any other advice than kind of follow what feels right. But if I was to give a piece of advice to anyone entering into this journey, or on this journey and kind of lost, I guess, it would be research, talking, and positivity. So I feel like these are like the three things that have really worked for me. And it's about what works for you. There's I don't think there's any harm in Googling stuff, but don't get swept up, because there's a lot of old data out there. You can confirm it with your medical team. If there's something that you see or something that you're interested in. We said, my consultant jokes about me being a professional patient. It's because I really am in tune with everything that's going on, and I like to research everything that goes on. Um, I really take in kind of what they tell me, and I'm curious, and I ask lots of questions to help kind of better my knowledge and how best to look after myself. Talk to your consultant and others about your experiences. I'm a massive believer in talking about how you're feeling, really, really helps. And the positivity, like, I know it can be really hard to stay positive. We're on a journey of uncertainty, but keeping a positive mindset just really helps. And just understanding that you can't control this, but if something's happening, there are things that you can put in place to help navigate through. So that would be my advice.
That's amazing advice. I Definitely from my personal experience, what you said there lands with me completely. In fact, I'd probably go and say almost exactly the same. I also love the power of three, the research, the talking, and the positivity. And that's really easy to remember. And yeah, I hope that anyone listening back is inspired, frankly, to go and maybe yeah, look a little bit more into things or become more involved, or as you say, like just talk about how you're feeling. It's such a simple thing, and yet we feel sometimes wired not to do that. So it's really, really valuable advice. Hannah, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, for coming on and sharing so generously. It's always a pleasure to have any guest on here, but definitely, I think the positivity you radiate out, and definitely your sense of knowledge and experience is amazing to see. It's really amazing and quite inspiring. So I wish you all the best for your healthcare future, and definitely yours is a voice that I think we'll have back around here sometime soon. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you so much.